My name is Carlton Cartwright. I'm the Executive Director for Veterans Memorial and Multicultural Histories Incorporated. Today is November the 7th. Today's Thursday. And we're here at Riviera Beach Preparatory Achievement Academy. And my students are here. They are Corey, Felix, Amari, Tequesta, Khalees, and Fustel. Good news. How you doing today, Mr. Daines?
Doing pretty good.
Good news. Good news. What branch of the service were you in?
I was in the United States Army and Army Reserves.
Okay. Okay. Were you drafted or enlisted?
I enlisted.
Okay. Why? Why did you choose that branch?
Well, actually, I was going to go into the Marine Corps on the buddy program with a friend, but somehow he ended up shipping off before me, and I just decided, well, I'm going to go in the Army instead.
Okay. Okay. And where were you at the time? Where were you born?
I was born in Boynton Beach, Florida.
How old were you when you went into service?
I was 18.
Okay. And so why did you choose the Army?
Well, what I looked at was the amount of jobs that they had. You know, I wanted to go in and start a career and select something that I can come back home and actually have a career versus just going to learn how to kill people.
Nice. Okay. Sounds like a good reason. Okay. What state were you living in? What were you doing at the time before you went into service? What were you doing?
I was in high school.
So you went directly after high school into the military?
Yes, I graduated in June of 1983, and in January of 84, I shipped off.
Okay. And what state again? You said Boynton?
In Florida, yeah, Boynton Beach.
Right here? Okay, so tell me about boot camp. Where was boot camp?
Went to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, and
How long were you there?
I was there for, I think it was 7 weeks, and obviously it was January, so it was the winter, which was a big surprise.
A little chilly, huh?
Oh yeah.
How cold would it get?
Oh, I don't remember. It's been, what, 30 years, but I know it was so cold it was snowing.
Gotcha. What were the instructors like?
Well, typical, mean, tough, you know, just, you know, they didn't tolerate a whole lot of things. And, you know, at 18, you know, there was still some growing pains that a lot of folks needed to go through, but they were tough for a reason.
Right. Gotcha. Okay, what was your MOS?
My initial MOS was, it was 88 Mike back then, which was vehicle transport operator. So I purposely decided I wanted to go and learn how to drive tractor trailers because I knew that that was a career that I could have when I came back home, and it pays well.
By the way, how long was basic training?
I believe it was probably around eight weeks also.
Okay. And what year did you say you went in?
That was 1984.
Gotcha. So it was how long? Just 2 months? How many weeks?
It was roughly right at 2 months.
Okay. And where did you go for your tech school?
I stayed at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri.
Oh, okay. And how long was that tech school for tractor trailer?
That was another about seven weeks.
Okay. All right. So were there any casualties throughout basic training or tech school?
No.
None that you knew of?
No.
Right? Good. Okay, good. And you didn't suffer any injuries either, did you?
No.
Okay, great. Where was your first duty station after tech school?
My first duty station was Fort Leonard Wood, as you were, Fort Hood, Texas, which is now Fort Cavanis.
Okay. And how long were you there?
I was there 3 years and 10 months.
Wow. All right. How many years did you do total in the service?
22.
Nice. All right. What was your tell us about your duty station. What was your job?
I was a heavy vehicle operator,
Mhm.
so I would basically go out on commitments. The unit that I was assigned to, we picked up people from the reception station and transported them to their units. We also supported units going on field exercises. So oftentimes we would go to the field with other units and support them, whether it be transporting their food, transporting soldiers and equipment back and forth. So we just, we would basically drive the trucks out and deliver their whatever they needed.
Okay, you said 3.5 years, right?
Yes.
Yeah, over the 3.5 year period, did you deploy anywhere?
I did not deploy per se. That 10 months, my initial enlistment was 3 years. The 10 months was I extended in the military. I worked at that stage in my career. I worked for a colonel, and so he asked me to go to Europe with him on it was called Reforger. So it was a training exercise. So we went to Germany, and we were, I think, every 3 days we moved. We had a battalion of over 900 soldiers, and so I pretty much was all over Germany, with the colonel.
Over the 3 year period?
Over the 10 months extension.
Okay. So wait a minute, you said extension. So you were there for 3.5 years and then you extended?
No, I was on active duty
Uh-huh.
for a total of 3 years, 10 months.
Mm-hmm.
My tour was technically over at the 3 year mark, but the colonel asked me to extend
Got it.
for 10 months. The 10 months was the time that I went to Europe with him.
Okay. And so you were, okay. So you were, I guess, transient the whole time? You were moving about?
Well, we had a battalion, so we had soldiers all over, Germany.
Right.
And it was a training exercise, so it was a real world training exercise with multiple countries.
Mm-hmm.
So every 3 days we were moved in different locations.
Was that NATO or?
I'm sure there was some NATO
NATO troops there, okay.
Yeah.
What year was this?
This was 1987,
Okay.
Reforger 87, yes.
Gotcha. And over the 3.5 year period plus the 10 months, any casualties?
No,
Anybody get hurt?
not to my knowledge.
No injuries, and I'm sure you didn't either, right?
No.
Mm-hmm. Okay, what was the next duty station?
I got out and I got into the reserves.
Okay, after a total of,
3 years and 10 months.
okay, and what organization were you attached to once you entered the reserve?
Well, actually, initially when I got off active duty, I went into the National Guard first,
Mm-hmm.
which I was in the infantry for about a year. And that was in West Palm Beach on Gun Club Road.
Got it.
So after a year in infantry, right across the hall in the same building was the Army Reserves. So I realized that my opportunities were better in the Army Reserve.
Okay.
So I shifted to the Army Reserve.
Okay. And so, how long were you in the National Guard before you switched?
Probably about 10 months.
10 months?
Roughly about 10 months.
Okay.
Just under a year.
All right. It was probably like it was probably a smooth transition, wasn't it?
Yeah, pretty much.
Right.
It was just a paperwork transfer, and then I was
You
over.
just had just show up.
Yeah, just in there.
Got it.
Yeah.
And I guess total time in reserve?
It's about 17 years.
17 years?
Mhm.
Okay. So over the 17-year period, when you did your 2 weeks and went somewhere, where did you deploy to? Did you just do it right there on Gun Club, or did you go out of state, or what?
No, basically when I went over to the Army Reserve, I switched MOSs. So I went into military police. I went to the military police school in Fort McClellan, Alabama.
How long was that school?
That school, well, it was a combination of you would go there for 2 months, then you come back home, you do correspondence, and then you go back again. So over, I would say, total time was probably 6 months. And I was actually undergraduate in military police
Congratulations.
school. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And when I came back to the unit, I was doing several jobs in the reserves. Initially, I was still doing the transportation side, so I did a lot of driver's training. The unit that I was in was a garrison, so the garrison unit had units all over South Florida.
Right.
So I would go to those units and provide driver's training to the different units. So when I became military police, I actually started doing the military police training. I created realistic training for our soldiers on the weekend up until we went to annual training.
Okay, all right. Annual training. So did you stay local when you did your annual training, or would you go?
No, our annual training, we went to Fort Stewart, Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, when you went there, you were assigned with your counterparts based on your MOS. In my particular case, was military police, and so we performed military police.
So over the 17-year period, did you get to go back overseas anywhere, or I just went to different states?
I did not go overseas
Okay.
anymore after Reforger. However, I did deploy in both campaigns. First in Enduring Freedom and in Desert Storm, Desert Shield.
Where?
So we mobilized the garrison unit in West Palm Beach. We mobilized to Fort Stewart, Georgia, which is the largest base east of the Mississippi.
Okay.
The first deployment, first year, Desert Storm, Desert Shield, I was a lower non-commissioned officer, E5. I was working in the capacity of the transportation. So there was a small detachment of us. We were assigned to Hunter Army Airfield, which is right outside of Savannah, Georgia. And in that capacity, we worked with what is called the DAG, Departure Airfield Arrival Control Group. And so we basically shipped the soldiers over that were going to war.
Right.
We took over that base and we took over the operations of shipping soldiers and equipment. My job at that time was, bless you. My job at that time was I would report to Fort Stewart. I would meet with the company commander and first sergeant. I would have an array of buses and vans, and I would meet with the company commander and first sergeant and their company. I would give them instructions on what they can take and what they can't take on the plane, and we would do a shakedown on the spot. So there was
What's a shakedown?
Shakedown is where everybody goes through all their equipment and make sure they don't have anything in their gear that's going to create a problem on that plane.
Okay.
So there was amnesty points, which is if you had something, you just put it in there and you're not held accountable.
Right.
Like aerosol sprays, stuff like that. And after we did the shakedown, I would have a manifest of all of the people that should be on there for accountability. And bus by bus, after we load all their equipment on the vehicles, on the vans and the trucks that we had, then I would literally manifest them on the buses, because I had to count. My job was to account for every soldier. And we would convoy back up to Hunter Army Airfield. Once we got into the secure area of the airfield, the soldiers would be there for anywhere from a couple of days to a couple of weeks.
And you said what airfield?
Hunter Army Airfield.
And what state?
It's in Savannah, Georgia.
Got it. Okay.
And so the soldiers they couldn't leave that area. The airfield, we housed several hundred, maybe at least thousands of soldiers there, because this was during combat. So you don't publish your flight times, but they could stay in there. We were very distinguishable on what we wore. We had a vest with a highlighted strip on there, and we wore light green caps with DAG on there, so you knew who we were. But none of the soldiers, once they got to Hunter, they couldn't leave unless they were with us, whether it was individuals or as a group. You know, we could take them out off the airfield and go, we would take them to the commissary if they wanted something else to buy.
Right.
We could do that and we could bring them back, but otherwise they couldn't leave.
Okay.
And so when we got notice that a flight was coming in, then we had to organize them and then get them on the planes, get their equipment on the plane, and then ship them off.
So, you didn't go back overseas?
No.
No, but you were what, combat support?
Yes.
What did you mention, that the two organizations, which is OEF, OIF? No.
Which?
What, you said Desert Storm?
Yeah, Desert Storm this year, yes.
Okay, Desert Storm, so you were providing support from here?
From Fort Stewart, Georgia.
Got it, okay.
Right.
All right, and did that go on for any particular time frame?
Yeah,
or
that was a
it
year.
just ongoing?
That was 1 year.
1 year?
Mhm.
Okay. So you never went back on active duty?
Well, when you're deployed, you're ordered on active duty.
Right.
So although you're a reservist, you're now an active duty soldier.
Okay.
Your ID card and everything changes.
Okay.
Back to active duty.
All right. And, okay, so during that time, were there any casualties in your unit that you can remember?
They're not in my unit, but there were casualties.
Okay, and other units like, you know,
Yes.
brother-sister units kind of close proximity?
Yes.
What kind of casualties?
Murder.
Oh,
There was a lot of murder.
a lot of murder?
Yeah, it's a known fact during combat. Soldiers come back home. Some come back early. Some they come back home and don't tell their spouses, and they come home and they find people living in their houses, and they commit murder. Happens every war.
Okay. Gee whiz. That was a new perspective. That was a new perspective. Okay. All right. Okay. Medals and citations.
I've got a lot of them. I can't tell you all of them off the top of my head,
Just
but
give me like 5, 10, whatever you can.
I have the Army Service Ribbon. I have multiple Army Achievement Medals. I have multiple Army Commendation Medals. I have national, it's a national ribbon. I have deployment ribbons. I have a good conduct award. I have several of those,
Right.
and that's as much as I can remember.
No Purple Heart.
No.
Okay, good. Good for you. Have you told us all the places that you traveled? Where's all the places that you traveled while you were in the military?
Well, that was the first deployment, but I was deployed again. So, well, actually, let me go back. On that first deployment, I was assigned also, part of my assignment while I was there, I was assigned to the 1st of the 75th Ranger Battalion.
Mm-hmm.
The Ranger Battalion are the people that generally, when war starts, they go out first. They're pretty tough. I was assigned to that battalion, and because it's everything they do is highly confidential, what I can say is I did travel with them,
Okay.
and that's all confidential.
I understand.
But during my time in the military, well, let me do it this way. So that was the first tour back on active duty.
Right.
My second tour, by that time I had switched MOSs. Now I went back as a military policeman.
Right.
So I was a senior non-commissioned officer at that time. I think I was E7, and so we deployed. I was operating in the military police arena. I was assigned as the Fort Stewart Provost Marshal's office non-commissioned officer in charge. In other words, I was the chief. I was responsible for all the military police officers on the base.
Okay.
And I also had a detachment of officers at Hunter Army Airfield.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I got to see a lot of injured people because it was combat again.
Right.
And that was another year tour, and we had a lot of soldiers that were, killing their spouses. I had some in my jail. I had some threaten me. We had a lot of anthrax scares. If you remember when anthrax was out, that was a big scare.
What year was that?
That was
90s.
2001.
Okay.
2001, yes. And so,
Oh, right after 9/11.
right.
Okay.
And then, it's a military base, so we had civilians that were coming on and off the base. So we had a lot of activity. We had fights, people coming on the base. They would go to the bars and fight. So we had same thing happens out here in the world. We had on the military base.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Did you have any problems staying in touch with your family during your entire career? Did you ever have a problem being able to contact your family?
It's different. It's different from what it is now.
Right.
Back then, it wasn't a matter of hard to contact. We didn't have the communication tools and all the programs that you have now.
Right.
Even though when I was on active duty and I was at Fort Hood, Texas, calling to Florida was a long distance phone call. So that call only happened every so often.
Mm-hmm.
So, when you were away, you were away. We didn't have FaceTime, you were gone, you were gone.
Right.
As things progressed during my deployments in the reserve, we had more tools. We didn't have FaceTime, but we did have cell phone. So you did have better communication at that time.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. How was the food, by the way, throughout the military? How was the food, in your estimation?
Well, fortunately for me, when I was on active duty, I worked for a colonel. So because we would be out at different times of the day and night, my pay I was paid extra. So, because I didn't eat during regular time, so I got to eat out on economy a lot. And obviously, when I went up through the ranks, I went through the ranks pretty fast. I rose through the ranks fast, so I always, I had the leisure of eating out, other than when I was on deployments. So overall, the food was, you have some good days, you have some bad days.
Okay. All right. You feel like you had all the supplies that you needed throughout your military career? Any shortfalls anytime as far as things you needed for vehicles or during your during your time with military police?
Nothing that I can think of as of now. I think for the most part we had everything. I mean, obviously, there's sometimes supplies that are needed, i.e. when I was in transportation, you deadline a vehicle, the vehicle's down until you get parts in, but eventually they would come.
Nothing out of the ordinary or anything that you couldn't handle?
No.
Okay. What was the level of stress and pressure throughout your military career?
It was very high.
Why?
Well, one, when I was working for the colonel, everyone doesn't get to work for a colonel. So when you're in a position like that, you're always under the microscope. So it's a lot of pressure because in my vehicle I had 2 radios. It's a lot of responsibility. I had what is called, I had a top secret clearance. We have, back then I think it was called crypto. So we had certain codes, a lot of responsibility. If you lose that stuff, you go to jail. When you're on the radio talking, you got to know the codes. When, like I said, we had 7 companies. When it's time to go to the field, if we had a company out on a field exercise, this is before GPS. I got to go off map. One thing you don't do, you don't get the colonel lost. You got to know your stuff. So it was always, you got to be on your A game. Uniform always got to be sharp. Vehicles always got to be sharp, always ready. So in that aspect, very high. Like I said, I went through the ranks fast. So everything I did, I was always, I was on top of my A game, but it's a lot of pressure because you always got to stay on your A game.
Right.
As I took over as the operations non-commissioned officer in charge up in Fort Stewart, I got a whole base I'm responsible for. Families, civilians, and soldiers. That's a lot of pressure waking up every day.
Right.
And like I said, that base is it's the largest base east of the Mississippi. We had anthrax scares. We had all kinds of things happening on the base that I got to be on top of.
Right.
I've got, soldiers do stupid stuff sometimes. So you always have to really keep your hand on the pulse of what's happening. Fortunately, my family wasn't there. So my day generally started at 5:45. I would leave my office usually on an average about 11 o'clock at night. Most often I would leave my office, I'd have my radio on, I'd set my alarm clock, I'd pop back in there an hour later, 2 hours later. I did that on the regular because I wanted to always keep them on their toes because they never know when I'm coming.
Right.
Because things happen. And at the end of the day, if it happens, it's still my responsibility. Then you had, I got promoted up there to first sergeant. So I went into command, and then I was company first sergeant. So I went from having physical bodies every day to now more administrative.
Okay.
So I was managing a company of personnel.
All right. Okay. Did you share with us every place you traveled to?
I've traveled during my tenure in the military. I've been to Fort McClellan, Alabama. I've been to Columbus, Georgia. I've been to Fort Stewart, Georgia. I've been to Fort Dix, New Jersey. I've been to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. I've been to North Carolina. I went to Fort Bragg. I've been to, I even went to a school in Florida, Patrick Air Force Base. I think that's pretty much it.
Did you use your GI Bill for anything?
I did use it, and I did take some college classes, yes.
But did you graduate?
I didn't.
Okay. All right. What would you major in while you were in the service? Yeah.
Criminal justice.
Criminal justice.
Right.
Okay.
So there's a story why I didn't finish though.
Tell me.
And I I stayed in college long enough to keep me competitive. And so when I went through the military, if you think of 1 is the lowest and 9 is the highest, I was an 8.
Right.
Okay? And the civilian world, because remember, Army Reserves is part-time, in the civilian world, I became a police officer. So I decided to go in the career field of staying in the officer ranks versus going in the upper ranks. Because for personal reasons, I just preferred to stay in the lower ranks. I retired as a 30-year police detective. So I stayed in college long enough to keep me competitive. I'm now a double retiree. I don't have to work for the rest of my life because I have a pension. So I'm not saying school is not important. It's all how you tailor your program. And my decision to leave active duty when I went into reserves, I really loved active duty.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew as hard as I worked, my pay was going to be the same every 2 weeks.
Right.
So I got out and got into reserves because I could have my cake and eat it too. I was able to be in the reserves. I was able to be a police officer. I was able to work a lot of overtime and create real estate. That was my plan. I own real estate. I own rental property. And I was able to create multiple businesses, which I've done all that. So in all fair terms, I'm very successful.
Right.
And I didn't need a college degree to do it.
Got it. Okay, but like Bill Gates, you didn't drop out of college until you knew you had something going, right?
Exactly.
That's what he did.
I
He worked.
preferred to spend my time working in my businesses than going to college.
Gotcha.
I did it long enough to stay competitive though, because you needed a certain amount.
What year did you separate? What
Uh,
year did you finally retire from the military?
2006.
2006. So what have you been doing since then? Now that you mentioned, what are your businesses?
Well, when I retired, that was 2006. I was still a police detective. I've been retired as a detective for 3 years.
Right, and who were you, I meant to ask, so when you went on reserve duty, the job that you got was with civilian police?
Yes.
Okay. Um, which department?
Ironically, I started my career with Riviera Beach Police Department.
Okay.
I was only here for about 9 months. I went through the academy. I wore the patch of Riviera Beach, but I paid my way through the academy.
Okay.
And I used my GI Bill for that also.
Okay.
And then
Where did you go to the academy? At Palm Beach State?
Palm Beach State College. And then I left Riviera and I went to Delray for 4 years.
Mhm.
And then I left Delray and I went to West Palm, and I spent the rest of my time at West Palm, and I retired 3 years ago.
Gotcha. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay.
Businesses?
Hmm?
You were asking me about my businesses?
Well, yeah, exactly.
I owned a mobile detailing business for
Mm.
over 20 years.
Mhm.
I had 3 vehicles on the road. I had a fixed location at the Palm Beach Mall when it was the old mall. I had, right next door to the Palm Beach Mall, there were the Forum buildings. I had 2 detailing operations in 2 of the buildings, in the Sabadell Bank building,
Uh-huh.
and one in the Forum building. I also had another set up at the outlets in Gardens, in the garage there, and I owned a coin laundry. There's a 5,000 square foot coin laundry in Delray on Atlantic Avenue.
Okay.
So I was working,
You were busy, huh?
very busy.
Okay. All right. So, okay. When you separated, where were you?
From,
You were here.
because I was in the reserves in West Palm Beach.
Right. Okay. So that was that. All right. Did you keep a diary?
No.
What did you think of officers or fellow soldiers throughout the service?
On active duty, it was an absolute great experience.
Okay.
I was fortunate enough that I was in a great battalion. The officers were great. The enlisted were great. My fellow soldiers were great. And frankly, if I could have spent my entire career just with them, I probably would have stayed on active duty.
Okay.
But I knew that was not realistic. And it, coupled with my other plans for success.
Did you hold on to any close friendships from the military?
I have a couple of friends that I still communicate with, that I was on active duty with. We communicate on social media and on cell phone.
Okay. I just got a couple more questions for you.
Sure.
Did your military experience influence your thinking about war or about the military in general?
I would say no, not really. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, we're trained to, defend the country and, trained to deal with what we got to deal with. So it doesn't really influence me one way or the other.
Okay. How did your service and experiences affect your life?
Well, it definitely taught me time management. It definitely taught me to double check everything. You can have people working for you, but regardless of, how responsible they are, you still double check because it could come back to bite you.
Okay.
It taught me responsibility and accountability. And like I said, overall, time management. There's 24 hours in a day. It's what you do with it.
Gotcha. Anybody have any questions that they would like to ask Mr. Daines? Questions?
No, sir.
Questions?
No, sir.
How did you get your real estate license?
Oh,
I don't have a license. I use my own money, so I buy property, and in some cases I renovate it and resell it.
Have you went to fourplex?
Say again?
Fourplex?
No, residential homes.
Residential home?
Mhm. But I recently decided I'm going to create another company with just my kids, and we're going to really expand the market. I didn't say when I've been retired for 3 years. So for the first year, I basically just traveled all over. I was having a ball. The following 2 years, I started getting a little bored. So what I recently did was I got off the fence. I said, I can't do this every day, sitting around. That's just not who I am. So I recently invested right down the street, and maybe you guys will get to come and see it one day. I invested with a pastor in a 15,000 square foot building. It used to be a TV station. So I'm literally right down the street. And we're going to be doing broadcasting and podcasting and a whole lot of other things over there.
Anybody else? Otherwise, I would like to go ahead and thank you for a wonderful interview, and also thank you for your service.
Thank you.